Good morning, folks, and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert and whisper, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
Fantastic, Carlos. How are you today?
I am doing great. I love our Tuesday mornings. I get to start off the day just in the right mindset, learning something new. And today, folks, you're in for a treat because we're going to be talking about give without guilt, how to be generous without going broke. And, we're getting towards that season. So we have lots to cover. So what do you say we get started?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So, what inspired this topic for us today, right? Giving without guilt during the holidays. And that's a big thing that we talked about before, but we're getting closer to it now.
Well, I think it's two of my favorite things, giving and not going broke. So it just kind of makes sense. That's the inspiration. But really, one thing that we never want to come away from the holidays with is shame or blame or upset or regret. The holidays are for celebrating. It's for family. It's for networking. It's for being present, with people and with the causes that we care about. So that's the worst time of year, whenever your seasons are that you're celebrating, that's the worst time of year to be feeling bad about anything. So I love giving, I love not going broke, and I love the quality of seasons, especially the ones that have a lot of gifting attached to them.
Yeah. And what's also funny is that, there's a lot of expectations that come with it, right? They create that shame. They create some of this, making you feel really bad about things. So how do expectations like from family, friends, or even social media contribute to this holiday overspending, right? Because it's everywhere.
It's all around us, absolutely. When they start advertising Christmas trees and gifts and all this crazy, holiday stuff before Thanksgiving, even before Halloween. A couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago, I started seeing Christmas ads. It's like, wow. And in the stores, the aisles already have all that stuff, so people can decorate early and buy more stuff. And it's everywhere. And of course, if you're going to holiday parties and you have teachers in your life and you have networking people in your life, business people in your life, your social folks, everybody is in gift getting giving mode and gift getting mode. It's fun to get them too sometimes. But everybody's in that mode. And so it's like it's very easy to over calculate, overspend by not paying attention. So that's one thing we don't want to come away with, that guilt or that regret from having given too much.
That kind of leads me to my next question is what are, let's talk a little bit about ways that you can give without really utilizing or involving money. People don't
Just
really
being
think about it.
Just being creative. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. They always say, it's the thought that counts. It really is. What if you just wrote 50 amazing characteristics about a person, put them all in a little jar, and they could unwrap them, 50 days in a row, what you think is amazing about them, and just kind of, affirm them. That doesn't cost anything, but it takes a little time, a little thought. And if you're thinking about, in our family, we don't give lavish, big, giant gifts. We celebrate all year long. But you want to have a little something, it's the idea of the gift at Christmas time. And so we sit down and we think, what would that person really want? What does that person really care about? For me, it's chickens. I really like my chickens. You probably have all heard about that. And so anything related to chickens or something that will bless my chickens makes me happy. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It might even be, some really great scraps. Popcorn, a bag of popcorn. So you think about what's important to the other person. If they love golf, maybe it's something to do with golfing. If they love travel, if they love just quiet time, maybe a book or a journal. Right. So you think about in their world, what's important to them. Getting in business, we say getting on their mental mind map. Right. What is in their world, not what I would want, but what they would want. You can easily get creative without spending a lot of money. And then it shows that you really cared and you spent some time thinking about their values.
And so that leads me to ask you, like, how do we shift that mindset, right? From how much we give to basically how I give, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's very easy to say that, but it's a lot harder than doing it actually.
Yeah, simple, not easy, like a lot of things financially, a lot of things in life. Simple, just do it, diet and exercise, right? Why doesn't everybody just do that? We'd all, look like we're athletes. So that's just not, it's not always that easy. But the mindset thing, Like that, chocolate or vanilla, you just choose. You wake up every day and you say, here's what I choose today. I choose not to overspend. I choose not to be in debt. I choose to be in harmony with my family. I choose to be generous in a creative way that doesn't mess up my bottom line, doesn't bust my budget, right? It's just that intent. The mindset, you can turn it on in a moment. Sometimes because it's a new habit, if you've got bad habits, we need to overcome those, right? So it might be every day we wake up and say, what's the goal today? To not go on Amazon and spend stuff like, for things I don't need. Is it to have a conversation with someone that can help me manage this or help me have accountability? Is it to not go by the mall on my way home because I get in trouble when I do that? What is it that you need to do? And every day, what's the mindset for today? What's the intention for today? It's just being intentional about that or any other area of life. And that shifts the mindset in an instant.
I also think too that when we don't pay attention, right, that's when we get into a lot of trouble. And
Mhm.
I think also, you know, I guess a question is, can generosity ever cross the line into financial harm? And I think that's a big one for a lot of us,
Mhm.
especially during this time.
Of course it can. And you have to think about, is it really generosity or is it something we're getting from the giving, right? Is it really generosity? And I think, coming from the biblical perspective, you cannot outgive God. And so being generous and having the right heart for the right, purposes is fine. But you can be a person that just gives, 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 and you never do something for yourself. You never save for your goals that you have, your future, your retirement, your family legacy, things like that. And you're always giving it out because there's some payoff, for that. You want to just check that. And when we're working with children, I like to do a lot of work with teaching children about money. And so you have some little kids that just give it all away. I don't need anything. I don't need to save. I just want to give it all away. It feels good, when somebody gets, my
Mhm.
dolly or I buy them a toy or a treat or something. I want to give it all away. Then you have other kids that it's like, nope, that's mine. I'm not going to share. And so there's that whole spectrum. And you might have kids. We had five. And so, we had them all over, that spectrum. Some just want to give it all, some just want to keep it all. And so it's finding that balance. And as adults, if we haven't found that balance and we give too much, it might be harming us in the long run because we need to put ourselves on the priority too. And there's a lot of psychological reasons that people do that. Maybe they don't feel worth it. Maybe they don't feel that they deserve to have a future retirement or to not be stressed about money all the time because they've always lived in that. They're comfortable there. I would say be uncomfortable being there, right? You should have abundance. You should have plenty. And it just takes little tiny steps over time to get there. And you can do it. We've got all the tools and resources here for you. So feel free to use them. And if you want to turn this thing around, it can happen really fast.
Folks, if you're just joining us, welcome to today's show. We are talking about give without guilt, how to be generous without going broke. And if you're just joining us, please watch the beginning of the show. Watch our Halloween special from last week too. A lot of great content, a lot of fun content as well too. And as always, if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. So I want to keep this momentum going because this is you've been hitting a lot of points too on family, right? And it's important. We have new parents, we have parents that have little ones that are just in elementary school and so forth, every age group. So how do you recommend families talk about this gift giving so everyone stays on the same page? You use some of your examples of your own as well too, but how do we get the majority of these families out there like in that mindset, in that conversation mode?
Well, sometimes it's just numbers. If you have a large family, you have a whole bunch of kids, or you get together for the holidays with all the cousins and aunts and uncles and everybody else, and everybody needs to have a little gift. What a lot of families will do is, they'll draw names. You've heard about how that goes, or they'll, get something that everyone could enjoy, and then they do some kind of a gift game, where everybody comes away with something. It's about the idea of the gift, not necessarily the value of the gift. Right. It's the same thing as the thought that counts. So you still want to have the gifts and the bows and the wrapping and all that stuff and things under the tree, but it doesn't have to be costly. So just find a creative way to do that. You can talk to your kids about maybe having a limit. Some people will say $5 limit, $20 limit, whatever works at your house, depending on the family, if it's nuclear family or whatever you're working with. Lots of ways that you can do that to set limits so you still get all the joy of that. But, if you're limited at a low amount, you got to get creative. There's no other way. What if it's a scavenger hunt? And at the end of the scavenger hunt, there's your gift. That's fun to do. It creates memories, which is a lot of what the Christmas holiday is about, what the Thanksgiving holiday is about. Around our table at Thanksgiving, it's about giving and giving thanks and giving and giving, right? Is that word. And so, what we've done since our kids were little is we've always gone around the table, and everybody brings to the table an idea of who they'd like to give money to or what cause that they care about that they'd like to contribute to. And when they were little, it was like, $20 a piece, $50 a piece. Well, we have a foundation and we like to give as a family. So now those numbers have really increased to, hundreds, thousands, and beyond. And so everybody comes to the table and says, here's how I want to contribute this year. Then we have between Thanksgiving week and the end of the year to make those contributions for the tax reasons. It's a good thing. But from our foundations, it's just a wonderful way to go. So that's something that you can do as a family tradition that doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot. Now, in our case, it's monetary, but we plan for that, for the gifting part. But you set your traditions. We go around the table and talk about what we're grateful for. And whoever's holding the candle is talking, everyone else is listening, and being present with them while they're sharing, that the wonderful things that have happened in their life over the year, what they're grateful for that day. So those are traditions that you can do. They don't cost anything, but it just keeps us in that giving spirit of the holidays that are coming up.
Yeah, and this also leads me to I always love your stories. So related to this, can you think of maybe recent, maybe in the past, somebody to help overcome this and change that mindset about this overspending specifically during the holidays?
Planning ahead, planning ahead. I'm a planner, so I'm always thinking, okay, what's the opportunity? What's the limitation? I'm always thinking about the SWOT analysis if you're in business, right? The strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, right? So we're always doing that. In my head, I'm always doing that. I'm always planning. And so it's nice to have a parameter. So, if you think about going through the whole, let's just call it November, Thanksgiving and whatever else is happening, maybe harvest parties, whatever you're doing this month. You say, okay, the best case is we come out spending $100 for all of that, decorations and pumpkins and all that stuff. The worst case would be, it'd be really bad if we spent $2,000. So 100 would be like super great. 2,000 would be really, really bad, like we really overdid it. And then you find somewhere in between. So maybe the goal, you come in and say, well, $400 or $500, $450, right, is what we'd like to spend. Then you work backwards. Well, what are the things we're going to do? You look at your calendar, you ask the kids, what do you have coming up? Is there a special Friendsgiving that you're having at school where we need to bring cupcakes or turkey rolls or something? Plan for that, because that might be something outside of your normal spending plan. Some people would call a budget, right? Your spending plan. You say, okay, well, that's $50 and this thing's $20 and that thing's $40. Maybe we have $30 that we can decorate with and $50 to go to that special, dinner with grandma or whatever it is. And then you just allocate ahead by planning with your calendar and with your checkbook what that's going to look like. Then you get to the end of the holidays and go, wow, we actually are under budget. We did really well. And now we go into another holiday season feeling really good about managing the spending of the holiday. So it's just a little bit of planning. Involve your kids in that, because there's going to be things on their minds too. Get everybody's priorities and make sure that they're all met, but without overspending. It can be done.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to say this just as an example to the youngsters that are watching, right? When I say youngsters, obviously anybody below 50 for me is a youngster. But always remember to what's important and what priorities are, right? Because mom and dad are not going to be around for a long time, and we tend to forget those that are very important in our lives because we're focused on, oh, I'm focused on my girlfriend, I'm focused on my boyfriend or whatever, versus your family and things like that too. So this is something really for you also to think about in creating the spending plan, especially for the holiday season, because I remember you can get into some really hot water spending so much money on just things that don't matter. You know what I mean? And I think that's stuff that you've talked about too, staying focused and also changing that mindset as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, keeping your spending plan in mind for everything that you do. Money touches almost everything that we do. And it's almost every day that we do make some decisions about money, either an expense we have to pay or money that's coming in or allocating it or shopping or whatever it is. Almost every day there are financial decisions. And it's all those little fine tunings of those decisions that can make all the difference in what your future looks like and whether you're going to reach those next levels financially or not. So it's just being mindful, as you said, being using a positive mindset, a probable mindset, and then planning, and then execute the plan.
I want to ask you one last question because we're getting towards the end of this, but
Mhm.
and this is something that comes up all the time is what message do you have for someone, especially those that feel guilty because they can't give as much this year, or sometimes they can't give as much as someone else, you know?
Mhm. Well, just don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. Sometimes we have those bottlenecks, financially in our life. Maybe we went back to school, maybe we lost a job, maybe somebody's been ill, somebody that used to work now can't or chooses not to. You're raising triplets. So things change financially and it's not always up, 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 up. It's kind of like as you climb a mountain, it's not always uphill and then downhill. There's a little up, a little down, a little up, a little level. That's how life is financially. If you went back and graphed your past, you'd see that. And so the
Mhm.
future will be that way too. So we plan for the gaps, we plan for the downhill parts, we plan for the bottleneck parts. But there should be no guilt when circumstances have changed and you haven't met your goals. We don't have the savings we want. The retirement doesn't feel like it's on track. We have more expenses. The kids are in sports and they're riding horses and doing all these things that cost money. It's like, where's it going to come from? Inflation seems to have impacted us. Where did the money go? I used to come back from the grocery store with 4 bags. Now it's 3. We got to really make it work. But you can make it work. And so in those bottleneck times, it's just time to be creative, have a conversation. We're not where we were, or it doesn't feel like where we were. What can we do to help make the ends meet and help, take that stress off? So, first of all, looking at it, a lot of people don't look at their money. It just blows my mind. It's crazy. People don't look at their money. They don't want to see it. They don't want to look at the budget. It feels limiting or it feels like constraining. You got to look at it. You got to be honest about decisions you have made and how you got here, which isn't always your fault, but we are here. And as a family, as a couple, you're there. So from here, where do we go? Chart the course, move ahead. Again, simple, not always easy, but you can do it.
Yeah. Hey, folks, we are at the tail end of the show, so you know what that means. Okay, this is going to be an interesting challenge because we don't want to overspend. So take it away.
Here's your challenge. Simple, not easy. We'll see if it's easy. Maybe you can make it easy. Let's say November 30th comes around and it was the best month ever financially. You have more in savings than you thought. You have less that was spent than you thought. Your credit card balance is not, upsetting. And it was a great month. What would need to happen? This is your challenge with pen and paper. What would need to happen for you to end up at the end of November with that result? What 5 things could you do or stop doing to give you that result? That's your challenge. Write it down and then execute. That's all you got to do. Simple.
All right, folks, let us know if you have any additional questions so we can make sure we address it as well. And remember that we are here every Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. with the replays on Thursdays at 8 p.m. And if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. There's a wealth of information and knowledge available at your fingertips. So shame on you if you don't use these free resources, right? So that's all I'm going to say for that. So until next week, you guys be safe. Any last parting words, Judy?
Enjoy your fall season. It's beautiful. Have a great time.
Take care, guys.